Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another broadcast of The Weekly with me, Neff. Subscribe to the channel, please. Share this video with a couple of friends and share our channel with a couple of friends. We're trying to reach 500 subscriptions, and every subscription helps us out a ton. We appreciate it very much. So we have a quick turnaround. Obviously, we've talked about 28 years later a couple times. We talked about the release of that first trailer there. Pretty good trailer. If you guys haven't watched it, go watch that. I actually did a review on that trailer as well. But I've also spoken about the fact that there's going to be a sequel to the film called 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. And so it looks like we have an official release date for that film, and it's not far out from the release of the film coming out in 2025. Nia DaCosta's 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple sets January 2026 release date. Things are really revving up when it comes to Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's 28 Years Later trilogy. The first one has already set up a June 2025 release, and now we have the second one officially dated. Nia DaCosta's 28 Years Later Part 2, The Bone Temple, has been dated for a January 16th, 2026 release via Sony. That's a little less than 8 months after the first one comes out. No word yet on the official cast, but Aaron Taylor Johnson has confirmed his presence for this one. A little side note, DaCosta is the same filmmaker that did make The Marvels, so kind of rough there, but she's also been credited on a 2018 indie film, Little Woods, and 2021's Candyman remake, which I didn't hear good things about as well. She's also already shot Hita, due for release next year, so she looks like she's pretty busy at work, but a lot of the films she has worked on aren't that good. I was also talking to someone offline yesterday about, why they keep switching the directors. Danny Boyle, obviously responsible for 28 Days Later, and then 28 Weeks Later, you had a different director. Same thing that's happening with this film. For 28 Years Later, you have Danny Boyle and Alex Garland working together, and then for the sequel film, it's another director. I think they need to stick with Danny Boyle. I don't understand why they keep switching directors, or why Danny Boyle does not opt to actually shoot the sequel. It would actually work for continuity, and I think overall the films would be better. I've always wondered why they do that with this series, but let's keep reading. In January, as part of the heated bidding war, Sony landed the rights to the 28 Years Later trilogy and gave each film a $60 million budget. Still no word on when the third chapter will be shot, and there's no director attached to that one, so apparently there are 3 films. Interesting there. All 3 films will be written by Alex Garland. So very interesting. Hopefully they don't go through 3 directors for these 3 films. It looks like they're going to turn this thing into a trilogy, which would bring the whole franchise to 5 films total. So news that we have: 28 Years Later is releasing in June of 2025. Then we have 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, releasing in January 2026. And then apparently we have a final film, maybe to round out the trilogy, and we don't have a release date for that as well. That'll probably be a few years out, but with the pace that they are shooting and trying to put out these films, I would not be surprised if you get all 3 of these films within the span of 2 to 3 years. So very interesting news there. With all that being said, let me know what you think about this down in the comments. Obviously, if more news updates come up, I'll be passing on that information to you guys. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. Also, tell a couple friends to subscribe as well. It helps us out. And as always, be safe. It's Neff signing off.